The day the sky turned dark was a day no one on Earth would ever forget. It started like any other Tuesday in late spring, with people going about their daily lives, unaware that everything was about to change. At precisely 10:37 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time, every electronic device on the planet lit up with the same message. Attention, inhabitants of Earth. Your planet is now under the control of the Galactic Empire. Surrender or face destruction. For a few moments, the world stood still. Then, chaos erupted. In New York City, crowds gathered in Times Square, their eyes fixed on the giant screens that usually showed ads, but now displayed an alien face. The being had blue skin, large black eyes, and no visible mouth. Its voice, however, boomed from every speaker. "I am High Commander Zaxlor of the Galactic Empire," it said. "Your primitive species has been allowed to exist until now because you pose no threat. But your recent advancements have caught our attention. You have 2 Earth rotations to submit to our rule. If you refuse, we will wipe your planet clean of all life." As the message repeated in every language known to humankind, panic spread like wildfire. In London, people rushed to stock up on supplies, causing fights to break out in supermarkets. In Tokyo, millions tried to leave the city at once, creating massive traffic jams. In Rio de Janeiro, crowds flocked to the beaches, some to pray, others to party like it was their last day on Earth. World leaders scrambled to respond. The United Nations called an emergency meeting, but no one could agree on what to do. Some wanted to fight, others to surrender. A few even suggested this might be an elaborate hoax. Meanwhile, in a small office at the UN headquarters, Dr. Sarah Chen sat with her head in her hands. At 32, she was the youngest person ever to lead Earth's extraterrestrial contact division. Until today, her job had been mostly theoretical. Now, the fate of humanity rested on her shoulders. A knock on the door made her look up. It was General Williams, the stern-faced head of global defense. "Dr. Chen," he said, his voice gruff, "the Security Council has made a decision. They want you to be our voice." Sarah's heart raced. "Me? But surely there are more experienced diplomats." "We're not dealing with humans here," Williams cut in. "We need someone who understands alien cultures, who can think outside the box. That's you." As Sarah tried to process this, alarms blared throughout the building. They'd rushed to the window. In the sky above New York, a massive ship had appeared, dwarfing the tallest skyscrapers. Its surface was a deep metallic purple, with strange symbols glowing along its sides. "They're here," Williams whispered. Sarah took a deep breath. "Okay," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'll do it, but I'll need everything we know about their technology, their culture, anything that might give us an edge." For the next few hours, Sarah worked nonstop. She studied the alien message, looking for clues in their language and behavior. She consulted with linguists, psychologists, and military strategists. As the deadline approached, she prepared to face the greatest challenge of her life. At last, it was time. Sarah stood before a global audience of billions, her image broadcast alongside that of High Commander Zaxlor. She took a final, steadying breath. "People of Earth," she began, her voice clear and strong. "And to our visitors, I am Dr. Sarah Chen, speaking on behalf of humanity." As she spoke, Sarah could feel the weight of history on her shoulders, but she also felt something else, a fierce determination. Humanity might be facing its darkest hour, but they would face it together. Little did the Galactic Empire know. They had just awakened a sleeping giant. The war for Earth's future was about to begin, and humanity was not going down without a fight. The world held its breath as Dr. Sarah Chen faced the alien leader on screens across the globe. Her voice, calm and clear, echoed in living rooms, public squares, and government chambers alike. "High Commander Zaxlor," she began, "on behalf of Earth, I have a simple response to your ultimatum. No." A collective gasp swept across the planet. In the UN control room, General Williams clenched his fists, a mix of pride and fear in his eyes. Sarah continued, her voice growing stronger. "We will not surrender. Earth is our home, and we will defend it. Your threats do not scare us. They unite us." On the massive alien ship hovering over New York, High Commander Zaxlor's large black eyes widened in surprise. In all his years conquering planets, he had never encountered such defiance from a supposedly inferior species. "You dare refuse the Galactic Empire?" Zaxlor's voice boomed, a hint of confusion breaking through his authoritarian tone. "Your primitive weapons are no match for our advanced technology. Surrender now, or face immediate destruction." But Sarah stood her ground. "We choose to fight, not because we want war, but because we value our freedom more than our fear. We may be younger than your empire, but we are not weak. We are humanity, and we do not bow to tyrants." As Sarah's words rang out, something unexpected happened. Cheers erupted from crowds gathered in cities worldwide. In Paris, people sang their national anthem. In Lagos, drummers beat out rhythms of defiance. In Seoul, a sea of candles lit up the night, a silent but powerful statement of unity. Zaxlor, watching these scenes from his ship, felt a flicker of unease. This was not how conquered species usually behaved. Determined to crush this rebellion quickly, Zaxlor ordered a small attack force to demonstrate the Empire's power. 5 sleek, purple fighter ships detached from the main vessel, their weapons primed. "Let this be a lesson to you, humans," Zaxlor announced. "Witness the price of defiance." The alien fighters swooped down towards New York City, their weapons charging with an eerie green glow. People in the streets screamed and ran for cover. Sarah, watching from the UN building, felt her heart race. Had she doomed humanity with her bold words? But then something incredible happened. As the alien ships prepared to fire, a dozen silver streaks shot up from hidden locations around the city. Earth's own fighter jets, sleeker and faster than anything publicly known, engaged the alien craft. What followed was a dogfight unlike any in human history. The Earth fighters moved with impossible speed and agility, their pilots showcasing skills honed in secret for years. Blue energy beams from the human craft sliced through the alien ship's defenses. In less than 5 minutes, all 5 alien fighters had been neutralized, crashing into the empty waters of the Hudson River. Not a single building in New York had been damaged. The world watched in stunned silence, then erupted in wild celebration. Humanity had not only stood up to the alien threat, they had won the first battle. In the UN control room, General Williams allowed himself a small smile. "Well done, Dr. Chen," he said. "You bought us the time we needed. Now they know we're not as helpless as they thought." Sarah nodded, her mind racing. "But this is just the beginning," she said. "They'll be back, and in greater numbers. We need to prepare." On the alien mothership, Zaxlor stared at the scene in disbelief. How could these humans possess such advanced technology? And more importantly, how had the Empire's intelligence missed this? For the first time in his long career, Zaxlor felt a twinge of fear. He had clearly underestimated this species. The conquest of Earth, he realized, would not be the easy victory he had anticipated. As news of humanity's unexpected victory spread across the galaxy, other alien races watched with interest. The long-dormant humans had awakened, and the balance of power in the cosmos was about to shift dramatically. The war for Earth had only just begun, and already the Galactic Empire was learning a valuable lesson. Never underestimate humanity. High Commander Zaxlor paced the bridge of his massive starship, his blue skin turning a deeper shade with anger. The loss of 5 fighters to the supposedly primitive humans was unacceptable. It was time to show these upstarts the true might of the Galactic Empire. "Prepare all ships for a full-scale assault," he commanded, his voice cold with fury. "Target their major cities. Leave nothing standing." On Earth, the initial euphoria of victory quickly gave way to grim determination. In a secret underground bunker, Dr. Sarah Chen joined military leaders from around the world to plan Earth's defense. Admiral James Hawkins, a tall man with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too many wars, stood at the head of the table. "They'll be back," he said, his voice gruff but steady. "And this time, they won't hold back." Sarah nodded, her mind racing. "We need to coordinate our global defenses. Every country, every weapon we have. It's time to reveal everything." As they worked, sensors across the planet lit up. The alien fleet was on the move, thousands of ships descending towards Earth's atmosphere. Admiral Hawkins' voice rang out across global military channels. "This is it, people. Remember your training. Remember what we're fighting for. Engage Defense Protocol Omega." Across the Earth, hidden installations hummed to life. In the deserts of Nevada, massive ion cannons emerged from the sand. In the Amazon rainforest, energy shields flickered into existence over major cities. From the depths of the oceans, sleek submarines armed with plasma torpedoes surfaced, ready for battle. The alien fleet entered Earth's atmosphere, their weapons charging. But before they could fire, the sky lit up with a dazzling display of Earth's firepower. Ion beams sliced through alien ships. Plasma torpedoes exploded against their hulls. Fighter jets, piloted by the best of humanity, engaged in fierce dogfights among the clouds. In New York, Sarah watched from a reinforced bunker as alien and human ships clashed above the city. The Statue of Liberty stood defiant, its torch seeming to light the way for human fighters. But the aliens were powerful. Their ships, though taking heavy damage, began to break through. Beams of energy lanced down, carving furrows through city blocks. "We need more power to the shields," Sarah yelled into her comm unit. In response, lights across the city dimmed as every ounce of power was diverted to the defensive barrier. The next alien blast splashed harmlessly against it. Similar scenes played out across the globe. In Tokyo, mech suits hidden in skyscrapers sprang to life, engaging alien ground forces. In London, the Thames itself seemed to rise up, guided by hidden tech to swat alien ships from the sky. Hour after hour, the battle raged. The sky burned, littered with the debris of both human and alien ships. On the ground, soldiers and civilians alike fought with everything they had. As the conflict entered its 10th hour, both sides were reeling. The aliens had lost far more ships than they had ever expected, but Earth's cities lay in partial ruin. In the command bunker, Admiral Hawkins received reports from around the world. His face was grim but determined. "We're holding," he said. "Barely, but we're holding." Sarah, her clothes smudged with dust from a near miss, looked at the global battle map. "But for how long?" she asked. At that moment, alarms blared. A massive ship, dwarfing even Zaxlor's command vessel, had appeared in orbit. "What is that?" Sarah gasped. Admiral Hawkins' face paled. "That," he said, "is trouble." On his command ship, Zaxlor allowed himself a small smile. The planet killer had arrived. Soon, these troublesome humans would be nothing but cosmic dust. But as he prepared to give the order to fire, a lieutenant rushed in. "Commander," he said, his voice shaking, "we're detecting energy readings from Earth. Readings that surpass even the planet killer." Zaxlor's smile faded. What new surprise did these humans have in store? As both sides regrouped, the first great battle for Earth ended in a stalemate. But the war was far from over. Humanity had proven its strength, its ingenuity, its sheer determination to survive. And deep beneath the Earth's surface, in bunkers and secret labs, scientists and soldiers prepared the next phase of humanity's defense. The Galactic Empire had no idea what was coming. As dawn broke over a battle-scarred Earth, humanity prepared to take the fight to the stars. In a secret facility deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Sarah Chen stood before a gleaming spaceship, its sleek design unlike anything seen before. "Ladies and gentlemen," she addressed the gathered crew, her voice filled with determination. "This is the HS Defiant, Earth's first faster-than-light capable warship." A murmur of excitement rippled through the crowd. Admiral Hawkins stepped forward, his weathered face set in grim lines. "You all know the mission," he said. "We take the fight to them. Show the galaxy that humanity is not to be trifled with." As the crew boarded, Sarah felt a mix of fear and excitement. She wasn't a soldier, but her knowledge of alien cultures made her essential to the mission. As the ship's airlock sealed behind them, she took one last look at Earth through a view screen. "We'll be back," she whispered. With a flash of blue light, the Defiant vanished, leaving Earth behind. In the depths of space, High Commander Zaxlor was facing a crisis. Reports flooded in from across the Empire. Supply lines disrupted, communication relays destroyed, smaller outposts going dark. "How is this possible?" he raged at his officers. "They're supposed to be trapped on their planet." A nervous lieutenant brought up a holographic display. "Sir, we're tracking multiple small, fast-moving ships. They appear out of nowhere, strike, and disappear again. We can't keep up." Zaxlor's eyes narrowed. These humans were proving to be far more troublesome than he had ever imagined. Back on the Defiant, Sarah worked tirelessly in her role as diplomatic officer. As the ship jumped from system to system, she made contact with other alien races, many of whom had suffered under the Empire's rule. "We're not asking you to fight for us," she told a group of tentacled aliens called the Zorax. "We're offering you a chance to fight for yourselves, to be free from the Empire's tyranny." Her words, translated by advanced AI, struck a chord. Slowly but surely, a coalition began to form. Species that had been enemies for millennia now found common cause against the Empire. Meanwhile, Admiral Hawkins led daring raids on Empire strongholds. The Defiant's advanced cloaking technology, reverse-engineered from captured alien tech, allowed them to strike where the enemy least expected. On a dusty moon, orbiting a gas giant, Hawkins and a team of elite soldiers infiltrated a major Imperial supply depot. As alarms blared and energy weapons lit up the night, the humans moved with precision and skill that left their alien foes in awe. "Fall back to the ship," Hawkins ordered as the depot exploded behind them. The mission was a success, but the Admiral knew they couldn't keep relying on guerrilla tactics forever. As news of human victories spread across the galaxy, the Empire began to face internal strife. Species long oppressed by Zaxlor's iron rule began to whisper of rebellion. The image of humanity's fierce resistance inspired many. On a distant world, a group of reptilian aliens called the Saurians watched recordings of Earth's battles with wide eyes. "If the humans can stand against the Empire," one of them hissed, "why can't we?" The spark of rebellion, lit by humanity's defiance, began to spread like wildfire. Back on the Defiant, Sarah received a transmission from Earth. A team of scientists had made a breakthrough in understanding the Empire's technology. With this knowledge, they might be able to turn the tide of the war decisively. But as Sarah prepared to share the good news with the crew, alarms blared throughout the ship. A massive Imperial fleet had appeared, led by a vessel that dwarfed even the largest ships they'd seen before. Admiral Hawkins' voice came over the intercom, steady despite the danger. "All hands to battle stations. This is not a drill." Sarah rushed to the bridge, her heart pounding. As she looked out at the sea of enemy ships, she realized that despite all their progress, the true test of humanity's resolve was only just beginning. The final battle for the fate of Earth, and perhaps the entire galaxy, was about to begin, and humanity was ready to show the universe what they were truly capable of. The massive Imperial fleet loomed before the HSS Defiant, a sea of warships that seemed to stretch endlessly across the star-studded void. At the center of this armada was a vessel so large it eclipsed nearby moons, the dreaded Planet Killer. On the Defiant's bridge, Admiral Hawkins' face was grim but determined. "All hands, prepare for battle," he ordered, his voice steady despite the odds they faced. Dr. Sarah Chen stood beside him, her mind racing. "We can't win this fight head-on," she said, her eyes fixed on the planet killer. "We need a plan." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. The planet killer was powering up its main weapon, a beam capable of shattering worlds. "It's not aimed at us," a sensor operator called out, her voice filled with horror. "They're targeting Earth." In that moment, Sarah realized the Empire's strategy. They weren't trying to destroy the Defiant. They were going to eliminate humanity's homeworld, crushing their spirit and their ability to fight back. "We need to warn Earth," Sarah cried. But as Hawkins tried to send a message, he found their communications jammed. The Empire had thought of everything. "We have no choice," Hawkins said, his voice heavy. "We have to stop that weapon. Helm, set a course for the planet killer. All power to engines and shields." The Defiant shot forward, weaving through the Imperial fleet. Enemy fighters swarmed around them, energy beams lighting up the darkness of space. The human ship shuddered under the assault, but its advanced shields held. For now. As they neared the planet killer, Sarah spotted something odd. "Look at the energy readings," she said, pointing to a display. "The weapon's power source. It's not like anything we've seen before." Hawkins nodded grimly. "And that's why we can't destroy it from out here. We need to get inside." The plan was insane, but it was their only hope. As the Defiant took hit after hit, Hawkins called for volunteers for a boarding party. Sarah, to everyone's surprise, was the first to step forward. "I'm not a soldier," she said, her voice shaking slightly, "but I understand their tech better than anyone. I have to go." Minutes later, Sarah found herself in a small assault shuttle, hurtling towards the planet killer's hull. Beside her, a team of Earth's best soldiers prepared for the fight of their lives. With a bone-jarring thud, they latched onto the massive ship. Cutting torches flared as they burned through the hull. And then they were infiltrating the very heart of the Empire's deadliest weapon. Alarms blared as they fought their way through corridors, facing wave after wave of alien defenders. Sarah's heart pounded, her hands shaking as she fired a weapon for the first time in her life. But with each step, her determination grew. The fate of Earth, of all humanity, rested on their success. Finally, they'd reached the central chamber. A massive crystal pulsed with energy, feeding power to the planet killer's main gun. "We need to overload it," Sarah said, studying the alien controls. "But if we do, this whole ship will go up, with us on it." The soldier beside her, a grizzled veteran named Rodriguez, just grinned. "Small price to pay for saving Earth, Doc. Do it." Sarah's fingers flew over the alien console, her mind translating symbols and energy flows on the fly. As she worked, the chamber shook. The Empire had realized their plan and was throwing everything they had at stopping them. "Almost there," Sarah muttered, sweat beading on her forehead. The crystals pulsing grew faster, brighter. Warnings flashed across the screens. Just as the doors burst open, Imperial troops flooding in. Sarah hit the final command. "Done," she yelled. "We need to go now." But as they turned to run, they realized escape was impossible. They were too deep in the ship, too far from their shuttle. Rodriguez looked at Sarah, a sad smile on his face. "It's been an honor, Doc." "For Earth." Sarah nodded, tears in her eyes. "For Earth." The planet killer's crystal went critical. In a blinding flash, the massive ship tore itself apart, taking a significant portion of the Imperial fleet with it. On the Defiance bridge, Admiral Hawkins watched in awe and sorrow. They had won this battle, saved Earth, but at a terrible cost. As the remaining Imperial ships fled, Hawkins straightened his uniform. There would be time to mourn later. For now, they had a war to win, and the sacrifice of Sarah Chen and her team would not be in vain. The Empire had struck back, but humanity had proven once again that they would never, ever give up. The destruction of the planet killer sent shockwaves across the galaxy, not just in the physical sense, as debris scattered across star systems, but in a way that shook the very foundations of the Galactic Empire. On Earth, crowds gathered in streets still bearing the scars of earlier battles. They watched on giant screens as Admiral Hawkins addressed the planet from the bridge of the Defiant. "Today, we remember the brave souls who gave their lives to save our world," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. Dr. Sarah Chen and her team's sacrifice will never be forgotten. As Hawkins spoke, something unprecedented was happening across the Empire. On countless worlds, aliens of all species were rising up. The news of a small, supposedly primitive planet standing up to the mighty Empire had sparked hope in hearts long oppressed. On the desert world of Zarkon, reptilian beings shed their slave collars and overwhelmed their imperial masters. In the lush jungles of Nevia, tree-dwelling creatures launched surprise attacks on imperial outposts. Even on Solaria, the homeworld of High Commander Zaxlor's own species, whispers of rebellion echoed through crystalline cities. Back on the Defiant, Admiral Hawkins received a flood of transmissions from these newly liberated worlds. Many were eager to join the fight against the Empire. "Sir," a young communications officer said, her eyes wide with excitement, "the Zorax fleet is asking to rendezvous with us. They say they want to repay the humans for showing them the way." Hawkins allowed himself a small smile. Dr. Chen's earlier diplomatic efforts were bearing fruit at last. As Allied ships began to gather around the Defiant, Hawkins turned to his tactical officer. "What's the status of the Imperial fleet?" The officer brought up a holographic display. "They're in disarray, sir. The loss of the planet killer and the widespread rebellions have thrown their command structure into chaos. But," he paused, zooming in on a sector of space, "we're detecting a massive buildup of forces here, near their capital world." Hawkins studied the display, his mind racing. This was their chance, perhaps their only chance, to strike at the heart of the Empire. "Send word to our allies," he ordered. "We're taking the fight to them." As the Allied fleet prepared for the final push on the Imperial capital world of Solaria, High Commander Zaxlor was facing a crisis. Reports of rebellion flooded in faster than he could process them. His once mighty empire was crumbling around him. How? He raged at his advisors. How could these humans have done this? An elderly advisor, his blue skin wrinkled with age, spoke up. "Perhaps, sir, we underestimated them. Their strength lies not in their technology or numbers, but in their spirit, their willingness to sacrifice for each other, to fight against impossible odds." Zaxlor sneered. "Sentiment," he spat. "We will crush them with our remaining forces. Prepare for their attack." But as Imperial ships took up defensive positions around Solaria, they faced not just the human fleet, but a coalition of races from across the galaxy. Species that had warred for millennia now fought side by side, inspired by humanity's example. The battle that followed would be spoken of for generations to come. Imperial defenders clashed with the Allied fleet in a firefight that lit up the skies of Solaria. On the surface, rebel forces stormed the capital city, fighting street by street towards the Imperial palace. Admiral Hawkins, leading the charge from the Defiant, felt a pang of loss. Sarah Chen should have been here to see this, he thought. But he knew she, like so many others, had given her life to make this moment possible. As the Allied forces pushed closer to victory, Hawkins received a surprising transmission. It was from the Imperial Palace. High Commander Zaxlor himself was requesting to speak. On the view screen, Zaxlor's face appeared. Gone was the arrogant sneer, replaced by a look of defeat. "Admiral," he said, his voice low, I wish to discuss terms of surrender." A hush fell over the Defiance Bridge. After all the battles, all the sacrifices, could it really be ending like this? Hawkins straightened his uniform. "Very well, Commander. But know this, the terms will be dictated not just by humanity, but by all the races you've oppressed. A new era of peace and cooperation is dawning in this galaxy, whether you like it or not." As the transmission ended, cheers erupted across the Allied fleet. The war wasn't over yet, But the turning point had been reached. Humanity, once dismissed as primitive by the Empire, had changed the course of galactic history. And somewhere, Hawkins liked to think, Sarah Chen was smiling. The great halls of the former imperial palace on Siloria, once a symbol of oppression, now buzzed with activity of a different kind. Representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered here, their diverse forms a testament to the vastness of the galaxy. At the center of it all stood Admiral Hawkins, older now, his hair grayed by the trials of war, but his eyes still bright with determination. "Order, please," he called out, his voice carrying across the chamber. "The First Galactic Council is now in session." As the assembled aliens settled, Hawkins couldn't help but marvel at how far they had come. Just 2 years ago, humanity had been fighting for its very survival. Now, they were helping to shape the future of the galaxy. In the front row sat Zixera, a young Silurian who had been key in overthrowing her own government. Next to her was Kraltek, a towering insectoid being whose people had suffered greatly under imperial rule. And there, representing a coalition of formerly neutral worlds, was Ixlana, a shimmering, ethereal creature whose species communicated through color changes. "Our first order of business," Hawkins continued, "is to address the fate of the former High Commander Zaxlor." A murmur ran through the crowd. Zaxlor, once the most feared being in the galaxy, now sat in a secure facility, awaiting judgment. Kraltek rose, his mandibles clicking. The hive worlds demand justice for generations of oppression. Others voiced similar sentiments, the chamber growing loud with calls for punishment. But then, a quiet voice cut through the noise. "If I may speak." All eyes turned to the entrance, where a figure stood, leaning heavily on a cane. Gasps of shock and whispers of disbelief rippled through the assembly. It was Dr. Sarah Chen. Hawkins' eyes widened in disbelief. "Sarah? But how?" Sarah smiled weakly as she made her way to the center of the chamber. "It's a long story involving escape pods, a primitive world, and a lot of luck. But that's not important right now." She turned to address the assembly. "I understand your desire for revenge. Believe me, I do. But if we're to build a truly better galaxy, we must begin with mercy." Her words were met with a mix of reactions, some nodding in agreement, others grumbling in dissent. "Zaxlor and his regime must face justice," Sarah continued, "but through fair trials and rehabilitation, not vengeance. Let's show the galaxy that our strength lies not just in our ability to win wars, but in our capacity for compassion." As discussions continued, a new framework for galactic governance began to take shape. The Galactic Council would serve as a forum for cooperation and conflict resolution, with representatives from all worlds having an equal voice. Hawkins, watching the proceedings, felt a sense of pride. Humanity, once dismissed as primitive, was now helping to guide the galaxy towards a brighter future. As the session concluded, he approached Sarah. "I still can't believe you're alive," he said, emotion thick in his voice. Sarah smiled. "It'll take more than an exploding planet killer to keep humanity down, Admiral. Now shall we get to work? We have a galaxy to rebuild." Over the following months, the new galactic order began to take shape. Former imperial worlds were given aid to rebuild, while advanced technology was shared among all species. Earth, recognized for its pivotal role in overthrowing the Empire, became a center for diplomatic and scientific exchange. On a balcony overlooking the sprawling capital of Siloria, now a beacon of cooperation rather than oppression, Hawkins and Sarah stood side by side. "You know," Hawkins mused, "when this all started, the Empire warned us to run. Told us we were no match for them." Sarah chuckled. "I guess they didn't know humans very well." "No," Hawkins agreed, a smile playing on his lips. "They certainly didn't." As they watched ships from 100 worlds cruise peacefully through the skies, Hawkins couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. Humanity had not just survived, they had thrived, bringing hope and freedom to countless beings across the stars. The galaxy had warned humanity to run. Instead, Humanity had risen, fought, and in the end, they had shown the universe the true meaning of strength, not domination, but cooperation, not fear, but hope. As the twin suns of Siluria set, painting the sky in brilliant hues, Hawkins and Sarah turned back towards the council chambers. There was still much work to be done, but for the first time in millennia, the future of the galaxy looked bright. And it all began because humanity refused to run.